The grand hall of the Interstellar Council fell silent as Princess Velora of the Krynith Empire entered through the obsidian gates. Her scales shimmered with an iridescent crimson that marked her as royalty among her kind, and the twin horns curling from her temples seemed to drink in the light around them. Behind her, 4 armored guards moved in perfect synchrony, their plasma rifles held at attention. Not every diplomat in the chamber took an instinctive step backward. The Krynith were not known for diplomacy. They were known for conquest. In the span of 2 centuries, they had absorbed 17 star systems into their empire, each acquisition preceded by demonstrations of overwhelming force. Their warrior culture valued strength above all else, and weakness was met with contempt at best and annihilation at worst. Ambassador Trell of the Aquitan Collective pressed himself against a marble pillar, his tentacles curling defensively around his torso. The Vathari delegation retreated toward the nearest exit, their insectoid legs clicking nervously against the polished floor. Even the usually stoic representatives from the Silicon Concordat dimmed their optical sensors and moved away from the princess's path. Only one being remained. Stationary. Jake Morrison stood near the refreshment table, a glass of what passed for wine on this station held loosely in his hand. The human observer didn't move as the Krynith princess swept past the cowering diplomats. He simply watched, his dark eyes tracking her movement with casual interest rather than fear. Velora noticed him immediately. How could she not? In a room full of retreating cowards, he alone held his ground. She altered her trajectory, her guards following like shadows, and approached the human directly. "You do not flee," she said, her voice carrying the harmonics of her species. It was a statement, not a question. Jake took a sip of his drink before answering. "Didn't see much point in it. You've got longer legs than me, anyway." A ripple of shock passed through the watching diplomats. Speaking so casually to Krynith royalty was considered suicidal. The princess herself seemed momentarily taken aback, her crimson eyes widening slightly before narrowing with interest. "Do you know who I am, human?" "Princess Velora, 3rd daughter of Emperor Krynos, commander of the 7th Fleet, terror of the Outer Rim." Jake set his glass down on a nearby table. "You've got quite the reputation, and yet you do not fear me." "Should I?" Velora leaned closer, bringing her face within inches of his. Her breath carried the scent of sulfur and cinnamon. At this range, Jake could see the intricate patterns in her scales, like armor plating grown from living flesh. Her teeth, when she spoke, were sharp enough to tear through steel. "Most species find my presence overwhelming. Your kind especially should understand the threat I represent. We conquered the Helian colony 3 years ago. Hundreds of your people died." "I'm aware," Jake said, his voice steady. "I also know that the Helian colony was established on a sacred Krynith burial world without permission. Your people asked for peaceful relocation 7 times before taking military action. Context matters." The princess straightened, genuine surprise crossing her features. Around them, the other diplomats watched in horrified fascination, unable to look away from what they were certain would be a gruesome execution. "You have studied my people's history. Seemed prudent. Earth's thinking about opening trade negotiations with the Krynith Empire. I volunteered to do the preliminary research." Jake picked up his glass again. "Turns out you're not the mindless warmongers everyone makes you out to be. Brutal, sure, but not without reason. And this does not frighten you? Our brutality, as you call it?" Jake shrugged. "Humans aren't exactly strangers to violence ourselves. We spent most of our history fighting each other over resources, territory, and ideology. Still do sometimes. The difference is we're trying to be better than we were. Seems like maybe your people are too, or you wouldn't be here talking instead of shooting." Velora studied him for a long moment. Then, To everyone's astonishment, she laughed. It was a deep, resonant sound that echoed through the chamber. I like you, human. You speak plainly. No flowery words, no false courtesy. Just truth. She gestured to her guards, who stepped back slightly. What is your name? Jake Morrison. Well, Jake Morrison, you are either very brave or very stupid. Probably a bit of both, Jake admitted. My therapist back home would definitely vote for stupid. Another laugh from the princess. Several diplomats looked like they might faint from shock. Walk with me, Velora commanded, already turning toward the station's observation deck. It wasn't a request. Jake followed without hesitation, ignoring the frantic gestures from the Aquitan ambassador to stay away. The observation deck offered a stunning view of the Nexus system's binary stars, their light painting everything in shades of gold and amber. Velora stood before the massive viewport, her reflection ghosting across the glass. Do you know why I came to this council meeting, Jake Morrison? Official channels say you're here to discuss mining rights in the disputed territories. Official channels lie. She turned to face him. I am here because my father is dying. He has perhaps 6 months remaining. When he passes, there will be a contest for succession. The traditional way. Combat until only one heir remains standing. How many siblings do you have? I have 6. I am the smallest, the weakest by Krynith standards. I will die in the first challenge, unless I can change the rules. Her claws tapped against the viewport. I want to propose a different kind of succession. One based on wisdom and diplomatic skill, rather than pure combat prowess. But to do this, I need allies. Support from other species to legitimize the change. Jake whistled softly. That's ambitious. Revolutionary, even. It is insanity by my people's traditions. Which is why I needed to see how the other species would react to my presence. If they cannot even stand to be in the same room as me, how can I hope to build alliances? And that's why you made such a dramatic entrance. Yes. Velora's voice carried a note of bitterness. The answer is clear. They fear me too much. Even trying to speak with them would be seen as intimidation. Jake considered this, watching the play of starlight across the princess's scales. She looked regal and fierce, every inch the warrior her people respected. But underneath that armor, he recognized something familiar. Desperation. The need to be more than what everyone expected. You know what your problem is? Jake said finally. You're trying to play their game. All the diplomatic protocols, the formal approaches, the careful political maneuvering. That's not who your people are. Then what do you suggest, human? Be yourself. Be Krynith. Don't apologize for it. Don't try to soften it. But show them that strength and wisdom aren't mutually exclusive. He turned to face her directly. And stop trying to do this alone. Find someone who can bridge the gap. Someone stupid enough to stand next to you when everyone else runs. Velora's eyes gleamed with understanding. Are you volunteering? Maybe. What's in it for Earth? Direct trade agreements. Technology exchange. Military alliance against the void-born incursions in the Western Spiral. And the knowledge that you helped change an empire from within. She extended her hand, claws retracted, in the human gesture of agreement Jake had taught himself from their databases. Partnership, Jake Morrison. Not subject and ruler, equals. Jake took her hand without hesitation. Her grip was strong enough to crush bone, but carefully controlled. You're going to get a lot of resistance. From your people and from the Council. I know. Some will call you a traitor to Krynith traditions. Let them. And I'm going to need one of those plasma rifles your guards carry. They look incredibly cool. That earned him another laugh. Loud enough to draw the attention of the guards who had been standing discreetly, out of earshot over the following weeks. Jake became an unexpected fixture at Princess Velora's side. Where she went, he followed, his presence a statement in itself. A human standing unafraid beside the most dangerous royal in the known galaxy. Other diplomats began to take notice. The first to approach was Ambassador Trell, his curiosity finally overcoming his fear. Then came representatives from smaller systems, species that had also suffered under Krynith expansion, but could see the potential in what Velora was, proposing change, evolution, a new kind of empire built on something more than fear. Not everyone was supportive. There were assassination attempts, 3 in total. Jake's security training from his military days came in handy, as did Velora's own formidable combat skills. They protected each other, and each defense strengthened their bond. The Interstellar Council eventually agreed to hear Velora's formal proposal. Jake stood beside her as she addressed the assembly, not as a conqueror, but as a visionary. She spoke of strength through unity, of the wisdom in learning from other cultures, of an empire that could be both powerful and just. The vote was close, but it passed. Velora had her legitimacy. 3 months later, when Emperor Krynos died and the succession challenge was called, Velora did something unprecedented. She declined to fight. Instead, she presented the Council's declaration, the trade agreements with 17 species, and the testimony of Jake Morrison, human observer and friend to the Krynith. Her siblings challenged her decision. 2 died in combat against each other. The others, seeing the support Velora had gathered, eventually bent the knee. The coronation was attended by more species than any Krynith.